Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are opening up a remarkable text, one that has, well, profoundly influenced modern spiritual seekers. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
It really has. And we're not just summarizing it, we're diving deep into the architecture of his argument.
Exactly. This text, it's a true spiritual guide, but it's structured almost like an instruction manual, isn't it?
It is. Tolle proposes a radical thesis, really. The idea that spiritual enlightenment is not some distant future goal. It's not just for monks or saints.
Right? He's saying it's immediately accessible, irrespective of your external circumstances, your past, or, whatever struggles you're going through right now.
That's the core of it.
And our listeners shared this material because they're seeking that thorough, yet highly practical understanding. They want to know how to take this profound philosophy of presence and, well, actually apply it.
In the messy reality of daily life.
Yes. In traffic, in difficult relationships during job stress. So our mission today is to distill the core, sometimes daunting concepts, and really extract the practical techniques for achieving that inner freedom he talks about.
And Tolle starts with a parable that just perfectly encapsulates the whole premise of the book. It's a story of, I think, staggering irony. The beggar and the gold.
I think this is one of the most powerful hooks in all of modern spiritual literature. It introduces this idea that we are fundamentally wealthy, but we're all acting poor. So the story goes that a beggar sat on this old box by the roadside for, 30 years, just mechanically holding out his cap, asking for spare change.
He was completely identified with his poverty. He was his neediness.
Yes, that's it. And a stranger approaches and, out of curiosity, asks about the old beaten-up box he's sitting on. The beggar just shrugs. Nothing. Just an old box. I've been sitting on it as long as I can remember.
But the stranger persists. He senses something deeper, and he insists, "Did you ever bother to look inside?"
And that's the moment of truth. The beggar finally, pries open the lid, and there it is. The box is filled with gold coins, a boundless, unrecognized treasure.
That right there is the blueprint for this entire deep dive.
It really is. We are the beggar. We are constantly looking outside ourselves for scraps, for validation, for pleasure, for security, for a sense of completeness, when we are literally sitting on boundless, radiant joy and unshakable inner peace.
And that inner wealth is what Tolle calls being. When we look outside, we're stuck in the world of doing, of having, of acquiring, the world of forms.
Right.
The true wealth, the gold, is defined by the text as the radiant joy of being, a deep and unshakable inner peace.
So we keep using this heavy term, enlightenment. For a lot of us, it conjures these images of, Buddha under a Bodhi tree or something reserved for the superhuman. If the treasure's already inside us, what is this enlightenment that Tolle is guiding us toward?
Well, it's really important to strip away all that cultural baggage. Tolle defines enlightenment simply as your natural state.
Your natural state.
Yes. It's the felt oneness with being. The experience, not the idea, of finding your true nature beyond your name and your form. It is the realization that the essential you is something immeasurable and indestructible.
Something that's both intimately personal and also universally greater than the finite body you currently inhabit.
Exactly. But if it's natural, why does it feel so unattainable? Why do we all feel so disconnected?
That's the question, isn't it?
That disconnection is the state we call suffering. And that's why Tolle emphasizes the beauty of the Buddha's simple definition. Enlightenment is the end of suffering.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Exactly. When you frame it like that, it stops being this impossible spiritual mountain and becomes an immediate practical possibility.
That does make it much more accessible.
And, crucially, the Buddha remains silent on what is left when suffering ends. He didn't provide some big philosophical model of the next state.
So that void is deliberate.
It's completely deliberate. If he had described the resulting joy or peace, the mind would immediately grab onto that description, turn it into a belief system, and create another impossible goal to strive for.
Okay.
You have to discover what remains, what Tolle calls being, for yourself. That silence forces you into the exploration and ultimately provides the liberation that just, belief alone can never grant. The inability to feel this connectedness is precisely what gives rise to the illusion of separation and the fear and conflict in the world.
Okay, so if enlightenment is our natural state, something gigantic must be blocking it. And Tolle is absolutely uncompromising on this point. The greatest obstacle isn't your environment or other people or history.
It is identification with the mind.
He even labels thinking itself, in its current pervasive form, a disease.
And he doesn't mean intelligence is bad, not at all. But a disease happens when things get radically out of balance. We built the mind, it's an instrument, but it has completely taken us over.
So we don't use it, it uses us.
That is the fundamental delusion of modern humanity, according to the text.
I think most people, if they're really honest and they tune in, they can recognize that continuous involuntary monologue. It's the endless internal commentary, the critic, the planner.
The replayer of past arguments, the scriptwriter of future disasters.
Yeah, and the numbers Tolle provides are just astonishingly high. He suggests that 80 to 90% of most people's thought processes are repetitive, useless, and irrelevant to the present moment.
And crucially, often negative and harmful. Imagine the sheer leakage of vital energy that's required to constantly run that loop. It's like leaving the lights on in every single room of an empty mansion forever.
If you're wasting that much energy, we really have to understand the mechanism behind it. You called the mind a survival machine earlier. What does that machine actually do?
Well, the mind is primarily built for attack and defense. It excels at gathering information, storing it, analyzing past mistakes, and projecting future dangers.
So it's a fantastic tool for solving logistics problems, for classifying and labeling the world.
Absolutely, which is why it was crucial for our survival in evolutionary history.
Yeah.
But the key distinction Tolle makes is that this machine, on its own, is fundamentally not creative. It can only rehash the past and project variations of it.
But we equate complexity with correct use, don't we? We look at these phenomenal achievements, building skyscrapers, launching rockets, and we assume the mind must be operating at its peak potential.
That's the trap. Tolle asks us to examine the intention behind the complexity. Just because the mind can, say, solve an incredibly complex crossword puzzle or engineer something as devastating as an atom bomb.
An astonishing feat of analytical thought.
Right. Does that mean the user is free? If the mind finds pleasure in getting its teeth into problems, it will perpetuate problems, even if there's no necessity. The true measure of freedom is simple. If you cannot be free of your mind whenever you want.
If you haven't found the off button.
If you haven't found the off button or the pause function, then the mind is using you, and you are its slave, regardless of how intelligent your thoughts might seem.
And if we let this survival machine run unchecked, what does that identification do to our sense of reality?
It creates a thick, opaque screen of concepts, labels, judgments, and definitions. And this screen completely blocks all true relationship.
How so?
Well, think about it. When you look at a tree, do you see the living presence, or do you see the label oak? When you look at your partner, do you see their living being, or do you see the label spouse, provider, difficult person?
The label becomes the reality.
Precisely. This screen creates the painful illusion of separateness. You perceive yourself as an isolated, vulnerable fragment, constantly under threat or needing validation. This, in turn, is the root source of all fear and conflict, because you've forgotten the essential truth, that beneath the level of separate physical forms, you are interconnected with everything.
It's a forgotten reality that gets replaced by, I guess, belief systems.
Which can be comforting, but they're never truly liberating. Only the experience of that oneness is liberating.
So the immediate pathway to freedom isn't the impossible task of stopping thought entirely. It's realizing you are not the thinker. How do we practically begin to implement that? How do we find that off button?
Freeing yourself begins right now by starting to listen to that voice in your head, not as you, but as a kind of third-party phenomenon. You must listen to it as often as you can, paying particular attention to those repetitive, habitual thought patterns, the old mental gramophone records that have been playing for years. This is the practice of watching the thinker.
You're becoming a witness.
You actively become the witnessing presence, the silent observer.
That sounds like a meta-awareness.
Yeah.
We are consciously activating a higher level of awareness just by observing the lower, automated level.
That is the engine of the change. The moment you start watching the thinker, the observation itself activates a higher level of consciousness. You're no longer lost in the content of the thought. You are noticing the fact of the thought.
And that act of noticing creates a gap.
It creates a gap in the continuous, rushing stream of mind. Suddenly, there is space between the thought and your awareness.
What happens in that space?
You begin to realize that thought is only a tiny aspect of the vast intelligence available to you. Everything that truly matters. Deep beauty, genuine love, creativity, profound joy, inner peace. All of these things arise from beyond the mind, from that stillness you've just created.
The mind can analyze a poem, but it can't create the love that inspires it.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So the more we practice watching, the wider the gap becomes, and the stronger this light of consciousness grows.
Yes, and the result is a huge surge in vitality and alertness. This presence is the absolute opposite of a trance or some kind of spaced-out state. You become fully, intensely present in your immediate surroundings.
And what's the breakthrough like?
Well, the initial breakthrough often feels humorous. One day, you might just catch yourself smiling at the mind's antics, that continuous, worrying, dramatic voice, and realize you no longer take its content seriously.
It's just mental weather.
It's just mental weather, and your true sense of self no longer depends on agreeing with it or obeying it. That sense of detachment is freedom taking root.
Okay, so we've established that the thinking mind is the obstacle. Now we have to address the mind's primary tool and its habitat, time. Tolle argues that the mind habitually denies or resists the now,
Right.
because the mind literally requires the concepts of past and future to function and to maintain control. The mind and what he calls psychological time are inseparable.
That's why the mind hates stillness and silence. Those things bring it face to face with the now, which is ultimately the mind's dissolution.
To really drive this central delusion home, Tolle asks us to momentarily just discard humanity from the earth. Imagine the planet inhabited only by animals and plants. If an ancient oak tree or a migrating eagle were asked, "What time is it?" the question would be meaningless to them. Their answer, in essence, would be, "The time is now. What else could there possibly be?"
And this brings us to a crucial distinction, one that really defines our sanity. We have to separate clock time from psychological time.
Let's start with clock time. Why is that useful?
Clock time is purely practical. It's the horizontal dimension. I need to learn from the mistake I made yesterday, the past, so I can plan to meet you at noon tomorrow, the future.
So it's a functional concept for navigating the physical world, setting goals.
Yes, measuring progress, preventing us from repeating known errors. It's necessary.
But the danger, the mental disease, is psychological time.
Psychological time is when we stop using time functionally and start being time dysfunctionally. It's the highly neurotic, compulsive identification with the past carrying grievances, regrets, old identities, and the continuous compulsive projection into the future.
The worrying, the anticipating, the obsessing over goals.
Exactly. That is the state that turns the simple act of living into a constant crushing burden or a struggle to just get somewhere else.
And Tolle describes this pattern, particularly when it manifests collectively, as a serious and dangerous mental disease. This is where the distinction becomes deeply important and, well, historically devastating.
He points specifically to rigid collective ideologies, and it's important to stress he's using this as a philosophical illustration.
Right, of the danger of psychological time. He's not making a specific political point so much as a philosophical one about time.
Exactly. He argues that certain ideologies, whether they're political like communism or national socialism or even certain religious fundamentalisms, operate on one implicit dangerous assumption: that the ultimate highest good, the salvation, the perfect utopia, lies only in the future.
And the logic follows that if the highest good is in the future, then the end justifies the means in the present.
Precisely. The end, a mind-projected future heaven, whatever it is prioritized over the immediate present reality of individual human life. The source brings up these chilling examples from history. We see patterns where belief in a future ideal led directly to the brutalization, torture, and murder of millions of people in the present.
That is the clearest example of how the collective delusion of psychological time, the obsession with becoming a better society rather than being present and humane now, creates a present hell on earth.
It's a mass psychosis where the mind, needing time to survive, sacrifices the now for its own future fantasy.
That is a powerful warning about the nature of ideology itself. When the idea of future completion takes precedence over present reality, violence is the inevitable result. So if that collective pattern keeps us fundamentally dissatisfied, what's the escape hatch?
The escape hatch is realizing that true radical change can only happen in the now. You are not going to become enlightened next Tuesday. You are only going to be present now.
And the quality of your future is determined by the quality of your consciousness right now.
Absolutely. If you carry negativity into the present, you are polluting the future.
So how can you, the listener, know in real time if you're trapped in psychological time? Is there a test?
Tolle provides a practical criterion, a kind of litmus test. Ask yourself, is there joy, ease, and lightness in what I am doing, even if it's demanding? If the answer is no, then psychological time is covering up the present moment. You are treating the present as merely a means to an end, a hurdle you have to clear to get to some better future moment. And by doing that, you turn every single moment into a struggle.
But this is where the skeptical part of my mind kicks in. We still have mortgages, career paths, goals. We can't just stop planning.
And we absolutely shouldn't. This is where the depth of Tolle's teaching resides. You can and should still pursue external goals, what he terms your outer purpose.
That belongs to the horizontal dimension of clock time.
Right. However, your inner purpose is always the quality of your consciousness in the single step you are taking right now. That is the vertical dimension of the timeless now.
So, I can work toward a promotion, but my inner purpose is to perform the task playfully, with presence, rather than being driven by the anxious fear of becoming rich or becoming successful.
Exactly. Your goals become light when they're pursued playfully, not driven by fear or anger or the deep psychological need to derive your identity from achievement. You realize, though, in the deeper dimension of being, you are already complete and whole.
So the action becomes an expression of joy, not a desperate attempt to fill a lack.
That's it. And when you look at now from that perspective, Tolle's profound realization follows naturally in the couching. Now, there are truly no problems.
No problems. That's a huge claim.
Problems are fundamentally mind-made. A problem needs time. It requires you to dwell on an unsatisfactory situation mentally without the true intention or possibility of taking immediate action.
So if you think about a situation for 10 minutes without acting, you've created a 10-minute-old problem.
They cannot survive in the actuality of the now. When you focus your attention on the present, there are only situations.
Okay, we need a concrete example here. What's the difference between a situation and a problem?
A situation is, I have a $5,000 debt payment due next week, and I only have $1,000 in my account. The problem is the compulsive mental narrative that goes with it.
I'm a failure. I'll never get out of this. I won't be able to sleep. My life is ruined.
That's the problem. The situation can be addressed by taking action now, making a call, setting up a plan. The problem is just the mental weight attached to a future possibility.
And we see the ultimate expression of this in a moment of pure crisis.
In a true life or death emergency, say, a child runs into traffic, the mind stops fooling around, the continuous chatter, the worry about the past or the future, it just vanishes.
You become totally and instantly present.
The personality, the one with a past and a projected future, momentarily recedes, and something infinitely more powerful takes over. This surge of pure, conscious intelligence is why ordinary people can perform these incredibly heroic or courageous deeds. The emergency is not a problem. It is the situation demanding 100% presence, and that presence is the solution.
We've covered how the mind creates present pain through resistance and future projection. But what about the pain we carry around with us? All the emotional baggage from the past. This is where Tolle introduces one of his most fascinating and, frankly, intimidating concepts: the pain body.
The pain body is essentially the emotional residue of all the pain you've experienced in your past. Every time you were unable to meet an emotional event, a loss, a trauma, a conflict with presence, that pain energy didn't just vanish.
It left a residue.
It left a residue. This residue merges with existing pain, including the pain suffered in childhood from the unconsciousness of the adult world around you. It becomes this aggregate mass of old, trapped, unprocessed emotion that's lodged in your mind and, crucially, your physical body.
And what makes it so terrifying is that, much like the egoic mind, the pain body isn't static. It has a survival mechanism. It needs to feed.
It absolutely does. The pain body is the dark shadow cast by the ego, the emotional counterpart to the analytical mind. Its only goal is survival, and it can only survive if it forces you into unconscious identification with it.
So it rises up, often triggered by something minor, takes you over, and ceases to feed.
And what was its food? Pain.
Pain feeds on pain.
It cannot feed on joy or peace. Those are indigestible to it. So the pain body compulsively seeks out or creates experiences that resonate with its own energy frequency. Anger, hatred, severe emotional drama, victimhood, grief, violence, or self-pity.
So if I find myself constantly scrolling through contentious social media threads just to feel a surge of righteous anger, or if I habitually bring up old grievances in my relationship to create conflict, that's the pain body forcing me to unconsciously feed it.
That's a perfect modern example. The road rage, the obsessive replaying of a perceived insult. The sudden, overwhelming need to call a friend and detail every single injustice you've suffered. That is the pain body rising to become you and secure its next meal of negative energy.
If this entity is so powerful and pervasive, how do we, as ordinary people, dissolve the monster?
The pain body is actually an insubstantial phantom. It is deeply afraid of one thing: the light of your consciousness, your presence. Its survival is completely dependent on your unconsciousness.
So the practice is challenging but simple.
It is. The moment you feel it rising, that sudden, intense, familiar wave of anxiety or anger or sadness, you observe it. You feel its dense energy field directly within your body without labeling it or judging it.
So we have to bring attention into the pain, not away from it.
Yes. By taking your attention into it, the identification is instantly broken. You become the witness, the watcher of the pain body, rather than the person being the pain body. A higher dimension of consciousness has entered the space.
And it can no longer use you to replenish itself.
And starved of energy, it begins to transmute in the light of your presence.
This intense focus on the now is also the key to understanding and dissolving the constant companion of the ego: fear. We need to distinguish between practical caution and psychological fear.
The distinction is vital. Practical caution is just intelligence. Avoiding the edge of a cliff or checking the stove to make sure the gas is off is based on common sense derived from past knowledge. It uses clock time functionally.
But psychological fear is different.
Psychological fear is almost always divorced from any concrete, true, immediate danger. It's worry, anxiety, vague unease, generalized nervousness.
And this fear is always of something that might happen, a projection into the future, while you are standing firmly in the here and now.
Exactly. That gap between your present safety and the future projection is the anxiety gap. If you are deeply identified with your mind, that gap is your default state. Tolle reminds us that you can always cope with the present moment no matter how difficult because you are present. But you cannot cope with a future projection because it doesn't exist. It's only a ghost created by your mind.
So anyone identified with their mind lives perpetually in a state of fear, even if it's just a low, constant hum of unease. And this fear drives the destructive behaviors of the ego.
It does. The ego exists in a state of perceived endless need, perpetual vulnerability, and constant threat. To compensate for this internal insecurity, it needs external certainty.
Which manifests as the compulsive need to be right.
To be right, to win arguments, or to defend one's achievements and opinions violently. That forceful, compulsive need to be right is, at its core, a form of intellectual violence rooted in deep fear.
How does realizing this diminish that need to be right?
Once you disidentify from the mind and realize your true being is not tied to your opinions or achievements, the need to defend them just dissolves. You can state clearly what you think, but there's no defensiveness, no aggressiveness, because being right or wrong makes no difference to your sense of self.
What are you defending?
Only an illusory, fictitious mental image.
So watching out for that defensiveness, that internal clenching when you're contradicted, is a key practice for accessing the now.
Absolutely. By witnessing that unconscious pattern, the inner voice starting to prepare the counterargument, you disidentify from it. And in the light of consciousness, the pattern quickly devolves. This, for Tolle, is the essential secret of life: to die before you die.
To relinquish all those mental and emotional things that are not truly you.
Your identity, your opinions, your need for status, because they will all be stripped away eventually anyway. By relinquishing them now, you become indestructible.
We've talked about disidentifying from the mind and the pain body, but where do we go next? Tolle argues we must stop seeking spiritual freedom by trying to escape the physical world. We have to fully inhabit the body.
The body is the most crucial, immediate, and accessible point of entry into being. Being itself is the ever-present I am, that sense of self beyond name, form, and story.
Right.
To be deeply rooted within yourself means always keeping some portion of your attention on the inner energy field of your body, feeling it from within. This constant body awareness anchors you immediately and powerfully in the now.
This seems to directly contradict centuries of traditional spiritual practice. I know historically many seekers, both Eastern and Western, including great figures like the Buddha before his enlightenment, practiced extreme asceticism.
They believed they had to deny the body, fast, or even seek permanent out-of-body experiences to find realization.
Exactly.
That historical movement was based on a fundamental misinterpretation. The key insight Tolle delivers is that transformation is through the body, not away from it. The body is not an obstacle, it is the portal.
So no one has become enlightened by fighting, denying, or hating the body.
You must return to the body, make it your friend, and use it as the physical anchor for non-thought presence. When you are fully present in your body, the entire energy field can be filled with that light of consciousness.
So if the inner body is the access point, what exactly are we connecting to when we feel that inner energy field?
We are connecting to what many cultures call chi or prana or inner life force. This chi is the bridge. It is the flowing energy stream that connects the outer world of form, your physical body, to the unmanifested.
Wait, let's unpack unmanifested. That sounds highly esoteric.
Well, think of it like a massive power grid. The physical world is the light bulb, and the chi is the electricity flowing into the house. But where does the electricity originate?
From the source.
The unmanifested is the source, the absolute pure stillness and infinite silence from which the chi stream originates. It is that which cannot be spoken, thought, or imagined. It is pure, unformed potentiality. By focusing consciousness deeply into the inner body, you are tracing the flow of chi back to that absolute stillness, the source.
It's the realization of the formless within the form.
That's a good way to put it.
And this full body awareness, this constant anchor in the wara, now has incredible practical benefits, not just spiritually, but materially too.
Absolutely. Tolle suggests that by identifying more with the timeless inner body, you stop accumulating psychological time in your cells.
What do you mean by that?
The heavy accumulation of psychological time, the burden of past regret and future anxiety, impairs the body's capacity for self-renewal and healing. When presence becomes your normal mode of consciousness, the aging process of the outer body will actually slow down significantly.
So your timeless essence, your being, will literally shine through the outer physical form.
That's the idea. It's a staggering claim, I know, using presence as a physiological regulator.
It really is. It speaks to the deep connection between mind and matter.
And furthermore, this presence dramatically enhances our effectiveness in the world, particularly creatively.
How can we use the mind more effectively, but still root it in the body? We still have work projects. We still need to solve complex problems.
The highest creative mind use happens only when your thought arises from a state of conscious stillness. The most accessible way to enter that state is through the inner body.
So when you are stuck on a problem,
A presentation, a design challenge, a family conflict, stop thinking for a moment. Don't try to force the solution. Instead, shift your attention completely to that inner energy field. Become aware of the silence and stillness beneath the noise.
you're creating the gap intentionally.
Exactly. When you resume thinking, maybe only a minute or two later, the thinking will be fresh, effective, and intuitive, because it's now arising from the deeper level of intelligence that exists beyond the analytical mind.
So we move from thinking with the head to thinking through the whole body.
Allowing intuition and deep wisdom to inform the logical processes.
This practice extends to how we interact with others, particularly in the art of listening.
When listening to another person, you must listen with your whole body. That means you are feeling the inner energy field while the other person is speaking.
And that simple act draws attention away from the compulsive thinking process.
It creates a still space, a no-mind state between your consciousness and their words. This prevents us from projecting our own labels onto what they are saying.
So you're not just listening to their words or the mind labels you project onto them like, oh, she's so defensive, he's just being dramatic.
You're listening to their very being, the essence underneath the words. That realization of oneness felt at the deepest, non-mental level is genuine love. Most relationships consist mainly of minds interacting, trading concepts and labels, which inevitably leads to conflict.
Being in touch with your inner body creates the necessary space for a relationship to genuinely flower. If the inner body is the portal, then close relationships are often the forge where our consciousness is tested. And Tolle offers a challenging but necessary reframe here.
He states, plainly and repeatedly, that close relationships are not here to make you happy or fulfilled. They are here to make you conscious.
That's a big one.
It is. If you enter a relationship seeking salvation, wholeness, or completion through another person, you are setting yourself up for guaranteed repeated disillusionment.
And that's because the initial rush, that early euphoria, is often just an addictive high that covers up a deeper intrinsic fear, pain, and lack that are part of the egoic state.
That lack is the feeling that I am incomplete unless I have this person. When the high inevitably wears off, because no external form can maintain infinite euphoria, the painful feelings resurface.
And because the partner is no longer covering up your pain, You project that pain onto them.
You perceive them as the cause of your suffering. This leads to the tragic pattern where many love relationships oscillate between intense attraction and dependency and savage, pain-body-driven attack and hate.
So true love as a state of being has no opposite.
It can't. It is the felt realization of the eternal one life within all creatures. It cannot turn into hatred or pain.
So if we find ourselves in a relationship where the partner is consistently acting unconsciously, say, through severe jealousy, constant criticism, or attempts at control, how do we use this dynamic for spiritual practice without needing them to cooperate?
You do not need to wait for them to become conscious. Sanity can only enter the world through you. Your consistent presence will be the greatest possible challenge to their unconsciousness.
So the energy formed behind their hostility.
Whether it's their ego or their pain body, it finds the vibration of pure presence and love intolerable as it cannot feed on it.
So simply maintaining your own presence is the active solution.
It is the ultimate boundary and the ultimate invitation. If your partner is ready to awaken, your unwavering presence will open a door for them to walk through. If they are completely unready, if they choose to remain identified with their drama and resistance,
Then you will separate naturally, like oil and water.
exactly. The light of consciousness can be too painful for someone who desperately wants to remain in darkness. The outcome is secondary. Your inner purpose remains primary. Stay present.
The source also dedicates time to a cultural dynamic, noting that women are often described as naturally closer to the unmanifested being. This needs careful unpacking.
Tolle frames this not as a biological essentialism, but as an energetic and historical principle. Generally speaking, due to cultural roles and innate qualities, it is often easier for a woman to access and feel the inner body, the pathway to being.
Because the female principle aligns with receptivity, surrender, and nurturing.
Exactly. You're contrasting the being quality with the mind's doing quality. The Tao is described as the infinite, eternally present, the mother of the universe. This formless reality, the source, requires qualities like surrender, non-judgment, and the capacity to hold things in a loving embrace,
Qualities closely related to the female principle.
which is soft, yielding, and receptive. Being energy is fundamentally soft and yielding, yet it is infinitely more powerful and indestructible than the rigid, hard energy of the analytical mind.
This inherent closeness, paradoxically, means women also face a unique spiritual challenge tied to the collective female pain body.
Every woman shares in this collective pain body accumulated through thousands of years of systemic subjugation, violence, emotional pain related to childbirth, and loss.
And this inherited pain tends to wake up cyclically.
Often just before or during menstruation, restricting the free flow of life energy and leading to intense periods of irritability, sadness, or extreme unconsciousness.
So this challenging period can actually be seen as an immense spiritual opportunity.
Precisely. This time of intense awakening pain body can be transformed from a period of unconscious suffering into the most powerful spiritual practice possible.
How does that transmutation work practically?
The practice is extreme alertness. As the pain body begins to stir, you feel the first sign of sudden irritation, anger, or deep sadness. You must catch it before it takes over your thinking.
So you don't create a mental story around it.
No. Instead, you immediately put the spotlight of your attention on the strong energy charge you feel directly inside your body. Feel it, acknowledge it, and know that it is the pain body, but that it is fundamentally not you.
You hold your conscious, knowing presence, that state of detached observation.
And any emotion or pain that you bring your intense, alert presence into will quickly subside. Through sustained, non-judgmental attention, the pain body is transmuted, effectively dissolving the past and turning darkness into radiant consciousness.
This entire transformative process seems to hinge on the concept of surrender. For many of us, surrender sounds like passive fatalism, giving up on improving a bad situation.
That is the mind's misinterpretation. Surrender is not fatalism. It is not giving up on taking appropriate action. Surrender is simply the radical, immediate acceptance of the now and the cessation of internal resistance to what is.
And resistance is the ego's primary mode of operation.
It hardens the ego's psychological form, it contracts the physical body, and severely restricts the free flow of vital life energy.
So how do we reconcile surrender with the need to change an unsatisfactory situation, like being in a bad job or dealing with debt?
You have to separate the isness of this instant from the narrative of the future. You surrender to what is right now. You accept the situation as the temporary frame of your reality.
And this acceptance immediately frees your consciousness from mind dominance.
Right. Once the resistance stops, You can ask the specific, practical question. Is there anything I can do to change or improve the situation now?
If the answer is yes, you act. If the answer is no, you go deeper into acceptance.
Correct. If action is possible, you take the appropriate steps, but you focus only on the one thing you can do at this very moment. If no action is possible, maybe you're stuck in the doctor's waiting room for 2 hours. You use the situation to go deeper into surrender and the now.
And this is how your actions become non-reactive.
Yes, and this non-resistance is only required internally, which is key. It doesn't mean standing still while you are being attacked. It means your external action is non-reactive.
Like the wisdom of martial arts. You yield to overcome.
Exactly. If someone is rude, manipulative, or designed to hurt you, you let the words or the energy pass right through you. You offer no internal resistance. This is the definition of forgiveness in this context. There is nobody home, no defensive ego to get hurt anymore.
And that's how you become essentially invulnerable to external hostility. I love the mirror analogy the Source uses. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, the world reflecting your internal resistance, it is madness to attack the image.
You must accept the image. Accept it now to change your reflection, which is your experience of the world.
The acceptance of the moment is the transformative power.
It shifts your internal state, your vibration shifts, and the world has no choice but to reflect that fundamental change back to you.
Let's end with the ultimate paradox that often stops people. If suffering is ego-created resistance, how can one truly surrender to deep pain?
When pain, whether physical or emotional, is profound, the first urge is always escape. But there is no escaping profound pain. There is only a way through it. The pathway through deep grief or deep fear is not to mentally label it, this is unfair, I am a victim, but to turn toward it and feel it fully. Give all your intense attention to the raw feeling within your body, not the mental story or the person who seems to have caused it.
We are bringing the light of consciousness into the densest, darkest emotion.
By bringing your intense, alert presence into the heart of the pain, you are transmuting it. That light is what dissolves the pain body and the suffering. The suffering remains painful only as long as you cling to the illusion, the mind's story that created it. Once you surrender to the isness of the painful experience, the suffering becomes a pathway to peace.
It sounds like nobody chooses dysfunction, conflict, or pain. It merely happens when there isn't enough presence to dissolve the past and the mind's conditioned patterns.
That is precisely the summation. Choice only truly begins the moment you disidentify from the mind and become consciously present. Before that, the mind, conditioned by history, seeks compulsively to recreate what it knows, even if what it knows is pain.
And remember, time and pain are inseparable.
If you are waiting for more time to become free, you will simply get more time, and with it, more pain. The ultimate choice is to relinquish attachment to the past and future, and to dwell entirely in presence.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, seeking to apply this deep teaching in your life? We've learned that the core of Tolle's guide is astonishingly simple. Our freedom, joy, and peace are not remote, earned accomplishments. They are already present in the timeless dimension of the now.
The central practice is continuous, moment-to-moment disidentification from the thinking mind and the pain body, using inner body awareness, intentional silence, and the space between thoughts as immediate access portals to being.
The ultimate realization here is that we're not here merely to achieve personal goals. We're here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold,
which is the awakening of consciousness out of its identification with finite form. The true source of love, power, and genuine creativity is always within that vast, formless presence.
And that profound acceptance of the moment, regardless of its appearance, is beautifully captured in that Zen story of Banzan and the butcher. Banzan, after years of intense, unsuccessful spiritual seeking, overheard a customer ask a butcher for the best piece of meat he had.
The butcher, completely present in his work, didn't hesitate. He looked at the customer and replied with total conviction, "Every piece of meat I have is the best. There's no piece of meat here that is not the best."
Upon hearing that, Banzan was instantly enlightened. He realized that when you accept what is, without judgment or resistance, every single moment, every piece of your life is, by definition, the best. It's perfect.
Right.
If you're currently feeling the psychological tightening of resistance, that subtle hardening of your psychological and physical form against your current reality, consider this. What specific task, relationship, or challenging situation in your life right now are you most resisting? And what would it feel like, just for a moment, to simply accept it as the best piece of meat this particular moment can possibly offer? That simple internal acceptance transforms you, and in turn, the world reflects that profound, liberated shift.